Harvest time, boys and girls. I know a lot of you guys are itching to harvest, bring down the crop. Some of you guys that are growing for your personal and to maximize your yield or quality are looking to hold out for as long as possible. And that's going to be dependent on a few things, right? Rain, humidity, powdery mildew, botrytis, and also a big factor is the temperature at night. And I bet you're wondering, what is the coldest temperature you can let your plants exist in before it actually creates a problem in the growth or just whatever? Because you know you're going to have another good day the following day, right? It might drop pretty low at night, but the next day it's saying it's going to be 60, 70, and you might have a week or two of that. Well, the absolute coldest is 30 degrees. And why is that, right? Especially if you might be thinking, well, Mark, that's below freezing temperature, isn't it? Yes, absolutely. It is below freezing temperature if you have water, like water only, like H2O, right? That there's nothing else in the water besides just hydrogen and oxygen. But right when you start adding things to the solvent, God's solvent, water, right? It actually starts to change the boiling point and the freezing point. And when water exists in the plant, you actually have a much lower content of water than a cup of water, right? Because the water is going through the veins. So I'm also going to bring up the example of seeing when you put a cup of water or a bottle of water in the freezer and then you pull it out a couple hours later and it's still water and you grab it and then it starts to instantly turn to ice right before your very eyes. Well, that's the same situation, right? Even though water can exist in below freezing temperatures without freezing and it can still be viscous. Yeah, that's the point, guys, is that even if the temperature drops below 32 degrees, because it's flowing through the plant, the leaves are insulating the water, various things, it actually can survive at a colder temperature. What I have found and witnessed more often than not, though, is right around 30 degrees is when it actually breaks through that actual freezing point. So what is the actual freezing point of water in a plant? I guess that's really what we're discussing. What I have found, it's about 30 degrees. So if you have a week of still growing season where the temperatures are getting down to 35, 34, 36, 30, even 32. Maybe you have one night at 32 and the rest of the week's going to be beautiful. And you're considering whether you should pull it or not. I personally, if you're not fighting powdery mildew or botrytis or plethora of other reasons to harvest, because specifically what we're talking about right now is temperature, right? I mean, there's so many other reasons why to harvest. I mean, maybe you have a demand for your product. Maybe you want your medicine. I mean, there's so many other reasons. But what we're talking about right now, what's the coldest temperature your plants can exist in before you absolutely have to harvest? And why do you absolutely have to harvest, right? During those temperatures, why can't you even push it past 30 degrees? Well, it's because your bud will start to actually get tissue burn or freezer burn, right? But it's going to get tissue burn from the colder temperatures. And when it defrosts, you can actually see bruising on your flowers. And it starts to actually degrade the cosmetic look of the flower, because obviously what's happening is water has actually then at this point frozen in the tissues. And when water freezes, it crystallizes everything and it creates these microscopic little tears. This is the reason why actually we can't, I want to say we can't, I guess we haven't discovered exactly how to freeze the human body, or I haven't looked into it years, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've figured out how to do it and bring a person back. But what they have discovered is that if you bring the human body and the brain down to near freezing levels, and the tissues can exist, and still they just go into a dormant state, a very dormant, slow growth state. But even though it's like a near freezing level, as long as it's not creating tissue damage through the crystallization of the water freezing, then just like a human being and a brain, same thing with plants, they can still thrive. Anyways, I hope this video was helpful on you making a decision whether you should pull or whether you should give yourself another few days and ride out the rest of the season, because also those colder temperatures is going to bring out a nice, beautiful autumn color. And remember, that autumn color is anthracite, and that's sugars that aren't being processed start to get stored in the leaves and in the flowers. And that's actually what creates the purple color, and also actually helps create more of the purple flavors. Because obviously when one thing happens, another thing happens, right? So when it gets to these colder temperatures and anthracite builds up, well, bacteria have to create either a lack of bacteria or a very isolated amount of bacteria, because also bacteria begin to also go dormant at colder temperatures, stop producing, or will start to produce specific enzymes, one or the other, which actually helps produce more essential oil in the plant. And I bet you anything, I can't validate this yet, but will also help produce a specific enzyme to bring out that unique purple flavor, which we all know what I'm talking about, like the beautiful granddaddy purple flavor. Anyways, have a great grow, guys, and I'm looking forward to hearing people's comments on this one.